thank you for joining us. I'm Joy.
And I'm Laura.
And this is The Witches of Letters, a supernatural rewatch podcast.
Buckle up as we dive into Season 5, Episode 11, Sam Interrupted.
Laura.
Yes, Joy.
We've got really exciting news for our listeners.
Oh, yes, we do.
So, not only has Charlie's Castle followed us back.
Yay.
Pauses for applause. But also, Sarah Gamble replied to us today and added us to her story.
That was so fun. You texted me it when I was at work and I was like, oh, that was very exciting.
It was very exciting. I lost my mind. I'm not going to lie to you. So I was messaging Leah, who's Crimson Sonata. I was messaging back and forth with her. I was like, Leah, guess what? And I was like, I sent this to Sarah. And I sent the same thing to Navia as well. I was like, guess what? I tagged Sarah. We were all like, because we're all like laughing, thinking like, you know, probably nothing is going to come of this. And then I go shrieking back into their DMs like, you guys, she answered me. So for those of you who haven't seen it, I'm going to read it to you. Basically, Laura makes our out of context quotes every single week. And this out of context quote is me saying, wait, is Chuck a euphemism for the writers feeling like they are trapped in a relationship with all the Beckys?
Because that's from real Ghostbusters for context.
Yeah. And then I wrote, at Sarah Gamble, care to comment? And she replied and says, have never felt trapped by anything except a deadline, but then again, I'm much too boring to center in an episode of TV. And then in parentheses, see also French Mistake, which Laura won't know about yet, but is another really meta funny episode. And I replied, we refuse to believe that you've been boring a day in your life. You're witty AF. Thank you for all your incredible work. But yeah, my day has been made.
She literally replied to our story. She
did. And like, my mind is blown. I am very happy. Oh, I also told Spirits and Supernatural. I was really excited. I was like, guys, guess what? Sarah replied. So that's why, imagine if this is the first episode she ever listens to. Like, imagine if the timing works out and she's like, with these fangirls.
That'd be funny.
That would be really, really funny. So anyway, like, Charlie's Castle is following us and Sarah Gamble is mentioning us in her stories, and I feel like I'm living in a dream world. Are we awake right now, Laura?
I don't know. Do you want me to pinch you?
Yeah. But yeah, so I am so excited for the fact that we're getting such cool interactions in the fandom now. Like, we have been seriously blessed. We've had some really cool messages, some of which we're saving for future mailbacks. So if you haven't heard yours yet, we are doing 100th episode, which is going to be a bonus episode. So obviously we've got our 100th episode of the podcast, our podcast, and then we've got our 100th episode of covering the show. And those are going to be two separate things. So we're going to have our 100th episode of like, oh, we're recording the show, and that might have a little something special in it. But our number 100 is going to be us doing really cool stuff, and we would love to have listener write-ins. We would love it if you guys would tell us what you think of the podcast. If you have thoughts about the show that you've wanted to share with us, but you just haven't done it yet, we would love to add that into the 100th episode. Any really big takes that you have from season 1 to season 5, we would love to hear from you.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I think it's going to be fun.
I know, I'm so psyched. Laura has some games. I'm going to do, for anybody who doesn't know, astrology is a little bit of a hobby of mine. I find it really relaxing for my brain and really soothing. I love looking at birth charts. So what I have done, like the maniac that I am, is I've done birth charts for a lot of the supernatural characters that are actually like accurate. And then I have put up a post so that you can figure out like who you're the most compatible with, right? So that you can compare your chart if you want to, if you're so inclined for fun. To be like, oh, I'm the most compatible with Sam, or I'm the most compatible with Dean, or I knew Dean and I would have like amazing chemistry, like all those fun things. And a lot of people are saying stuff. It's actually really fun. Like, the comment section is unhinged in places. It's amazing. I highly recommend reading it for like entertainment. It's a good time. It's a good time. And you should go and join if you haven't already. That for the 100th episode, because we know Laura's a Sam girl, I thought it would be really fun because she knows a lot of her information. She sent me her entire birth chart. So I'm going to, on the 100th episode, tell her in depth her chemistry or lack thereof with Sam. Like, I'm going to be like, so it's going to be so suspenseful. And I'm going to tell her all the intimate details. And it's going to be hilarious and so much fun. And if for the 100th episode, any of you guys know some major placements, like if you know your big three, your sun, your moon, your rising sign, Venus, Mercury, that kind of stuff. If you know those things, you are welcome to email us. And if there's time, I will read you for filth in the 100th episode of which one you would match with. You could also request, I want a reading to know how compatible I am with so-and-so. But yeah, no, it's just going to be so much fun. If you have a brilliant idea for the 100th episode, also email us that. Be like, guys, you should read ghost stories, or guys, you should do this. That's great. We love to hear from you guys.
Mm-hmm. That'd be good. I just can't believe we're nearly at 100 episodes.
I know, right? It feels like we have not been doing it for long enough for us to be at number 100.
No, but I suppose we have been doing it like every week.
Every single week, religiously, for almost 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is also crazy because it's almost 2 years of us podcasting.
I think I wrote this down somewhere. I think our 100th episode is either the same week as our second anniversary or like the week before, the week after.
Whoa. Do you know what else is wild? Is we started in April, and that's so wildly appropriate because like all of these important things happen in the fandom in April. One of them being Eric Kripke's birthday is in April, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. And then also some other stuff that I can't talk about yet because it would technically be spoilers to tell you that. But yeah, stuff to do with the Impala. Really cool stuff.
Cool.
So, at some point, one of you guys wrote in, and I am actually going to go through my messages and try to figure this out. However, I have a lot of messages and a lot of screenshots pertaining to the podcast. Please help me. Somebody was saying, it might even have been Nadine. I'm not 100% sure. That we were talking about how, like, when people on the show die and come back, we were questioning whether that had changed them. And we start to see like slightly different behavior out of both of them. And the person who wrote in was pointing out, it might have even been Sam's behavior, but I think low-key it was both of them, like that both of them come back and are like different. And that's when things start to get unhinged between the brothers. Like that's when they start to have toxic traits. So like the question that they raised, which is absolute genius. So write in and remind us which one of you said this, please, so we can credit you appropriately. But what the point that was raised was like, what if so much of the stuff that goes wrong between them in their relationship is because they've been brought back from the dead and like they come back slightly
and zombies.
Well, they come back slightly less of themselves. They come back slightly darker. Because definitely there's more PTSD as the show goes on, right? And I feel like being brought back would be pretty traumatic. Unless you're Dean and you're being pulled out of hell. That was probably really helpful. But like my point is, every time they reemerge, they're kind of doubling down on the trauma that they've experienced. And that obviously is going to also impact your relationship. But like when I heard this theory, I was like, wait a second. Because when you start to think about when things really start to go wrong, or like when they start exploring the darker themes, it's after the first death and resurrection.
I mean, you're going to look at things darker after that, aren't you?
I know, but still.
Dean has literally died like over 100 times, so he's really dark now.
Yeah. But as the show progresses and this kind of continues, I don't know. I just feel like it's like a question worth considering. Like, is this cool. A thing? Is this the thing? Is this an answer to what happens? So, do you want to kick out this synopsis, Laura?
Okay. This is season 5, episode 11, Sam Interrupted. The original air date for this episode was January 21st, 2010. Sam and Dean get themselves admitted to a psychiatric hospital to investigate reports of a monster that is killing patients. They team up with Martin, a fellow hunter and patient in the hospital, and work out that the monster is a wraith, a creature who feeds on brains and can pass as human, although its true form is visible in mirrors. During the investigation, Sam and Dean become more and more mentally disturbed themselves due to the wraith's influence over its victims. Sam gets restrained after becoming violent, and Dean has hallucinations. However, they manage to overcome these challenges and stop the threat in the end.
Yes. So we have a special treat for you because I asked for a couple of people to chime in on this episode because I thought that there was more that we could do with this episode. I thought we could have a little bit of a conversation on the back of this episode and add some value to this one. So I have asked Navia from Anywhere But Here Fangirl on Instagram. Go follow her immediately. She also has a YouTube. She is a psychologist. I have asked her to weigh in on this episode as a psychologist and tell us what she thinks about this in terms of this media, the representation of mental illness and what's going on. And she had some really witty and fun thoughts for us. So I'm really looking forward to talking about that. And then I have even more for you guys. So it's going to be a super fun episode.
Excellent. Okay, so we open at a psychiatric hospital and a patient called Susan is being questioned by a doctor about why she isn't taking her medication. She says because they make her sleepy and if she sleeps a monster will come and get her like it did her roommate Annie. The doctor tells Susan that she's schizophrenic and she's seeing things. She says she knows what she is, but this isn't that and that it's real. When she says that she can see her dead son behind the doctor, that was creepy because he appears.
Yeah.
That was scary. Creepy kids. The
last episode and this episode, Laura's like too many creepy children in Supernatural.
Yes, always. The doctor says Annie died by suicide, but then Susan says she hears it in the walls at night. That was also creepy. And the doctor tells her there's no such thing as monsters.
Mm-hmm.
But there is.
We're in Supernatural, friend. There's definitely monsters.
Definitely. So later that evening after lights out, Susan is in her room and hears something in the vent. She looks up at it. It's not demon dust.
For once.
And the screws start coming loose. She screams for somebody to help her, but the nurses on duty don't seem to care at all. She says they're starting early tonight. We then see Susan huddled in a corner as the screws drop to the floor. Then she launches at the door and looks through her window, shouting, "It's coming, help me." And a patient in the room opposite goes to his window to see what's happening. Susan is dragged backwards by something and we just hear her screaming. And then we see the nonchalant nurse from before go into her room and Susan is lying dead with pools of blood under her arms and it looks like she slashed her wrists. And I just wrote to the nurse, "Bit late, love." You should have gone in when she was, screaming and tried to save her.
Yeah.
And I just wrote, "Poor Susan, no one believed her."
Yeah. I wrote, okay, so this is completely horrific. In horror, we have a really bad habit of making people with mental illnesses the villains. It's something that the genre really needs to work on. And it's nice that this poor woman was not a villain, but I'm not sure that killing her so quickly really sends a different message.
No.
That was my first initial thought. I also have an anonymous friend who is joining us in terms of, I asked her to watch this episode and give me her input as somebody who has been in mental hospitals as a patient, because I thought it would be really invaluable to have someone along for the ride who could give us an inside perspective and also add thoughts that we wouldn't have, that we wouldn't know to have. So we have our guest psychologist input from Navia, who is beautiful and amazing, and we're so grateful. And then we also have my anonymous friend. And what she said was that realistically, in an institution like this, there's no way that they would ignore a schizophrenic person screaming for this long, and especially not when they're screaming, "Help me," like that. Like, that's just for the horror of the episode. She's not somebody who usually watches a lot of horror. And so I said, you don't have to watch the episode. You can just give me your thoughts on mental health and wellness if you want to. And she was like, "No, I liked it." So I don't know if we've made another Supernatural fan, but that would be amazing. She really enjoyed this episode. And she actually had a lot of positive things to say. She felt like it was a criticism, like that the nurse, the staff ignoring this person was supposed to be seen as like a satirical piece of criticism about the treatment of people in hospitals. And she was like, low key, the blasé-ness of it, the just wandering by-ness of it. She said it's important to state that basically that people who work in institutions are usually good, and that the institutions themselves, like the hospitals themselves, are there for your well-being. And it's important to note that what's real is a very different reality from what we see in horror, that like actually sometimes it's kind of boring. She was like, it's not a vacation. It can be kind of boring, but it's not what we see represented in media either. But she had notes for improvement. Was one of the things that I was hoping to do on our end with this episode, was to be able to have some social commentary, so that for anybody listening who has any power to make any changes, they can hear firsthand from somebody who's experienced it from the inside how it could do better. And also, if we as listeners are informed, then we can advocate for people. So if we all know what needs to be changed to be made better, we can do something about it. That's the whole point. So we're going to examine the way that this episode treats mental illness. And that will be the lore for the episode, basically.
That's good. I'm interested to hear her thoughts, actually. Because I always, with these kinds of shows where they have these kinds of facilities on them, I never know, like, sometimes they make jokes which aren't okay, and then it's like, but then how much of it do they get? Are they getting anything right? And it does sound like the stuff, like I made a joke about the nurse being nonchalant and stuff, but I do think that is on purpose, like your friend said,
satire,
because like making a point that we shouldn't be like that. It's not saying this is how they should be acting.
Exactly. And she has some really interesting points to make about different kinds of biases that you could find inside institutions or hospitals like this. So I'm really excited to dig into this episode with all these different points. We have Navia's points. We have a phone in. Navia phoned in to give us some cool information that we're going to play in the episode so you guys can hear her thoughts. And we're just going to go through and like try to really dissect it. But I was really impressed because overall, everyone's takeaway from this episode was a positive one. Because like my friend loved the satire. She really enjoyed the episodes. I think she felt like the representation that we see from Sam and Dean of how they are within the episode had some depth to it, was my overall impression from things that she said. And I think Navia also appreciated that level of depth. She has some things to say about that in her phone call. Also, how cool is it that we're getting special guests phoned in? Like, I love that.
That'll be fun. So then after the titles, we are at the same hospital, but now Sam and Dean are talking to the same doctor that Susan was talking to earlier, and he's reading their file. And I did actually pause it here, and I'm going to read what their file says. So their names are Edward and Alex Van Halen.
I knew it was going to be Van Halen. I didn't actually see it because like my eyes were not, I wasn't that quick, but like
they call them Eddie, and he calls him Eddie later, doesn't he? That's Dean.
Yeah,
Dean
does.
is Eddie.
And I was like, wait, it's got to be Van Halen. It's Van Halen.
Alex. But it does actually say Van Halen on their file, so it says
amazing.
This is it's a patient history file, and I'm just zooming in so I can read it. So we've got, this is for Edward Van Halen, so this is Dean. It's got his date of birth and everything. And then it says the family contact is Alex Van Halen, brother. And then it's got like the file number and the policy holder. And it says patient history for E. Van Halen, compiled by Dr. Aaron Fuller. So this is the doctor. It says Edward was admitted to Glenwood Springs Psychiatric Hospital 9th of the 10th. No, hang on, because it's American. 9/10/09. How do you say dates in America?
We usually just say like what the month actually is. So it'll be like October 9th or...
Yeah, but it's the wrong way around. So it's September, yeah? September 10th?
Yeah.
Is that 9/10/09 in American?
Yeah. Yeah.
So September 10th, 09, after reviewing a referral from Chicago Psychiatric Institute and a preliminary interview with his brother Alex. And then it says preliminary interview. The patient was initially interviewed while in an appointment with his brother Alex, who had been referred to this institution from a Dr. Barber in Chicago. During the interview, it was determined that Edward should also be admitted to the facility for treatment of various psychoses. And then it's kind of covered up, but it does say schizophrenic with narcissistic personality, I'm guessing disorder, and then religious psychosis, which is what the doctor says to him later anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's what the file says.
That is a fun fact. Thank you.
That was fun.
So he mentions that they're referred to him by the doctor. And Dean says that's right. And Dr. Fuller says, isn't there a children's book about an elephant named Babar? And Dean's like, I don't know. I don't have any elephant books. Look, doctor. I think the doc was in over his head with this one. And then he points at Sam. And he says, because my brother is. And then he makes the crazy sign by circling his finger at the side of his head and whistling. And Dr. Fuller raises his hand like, that's not appropriate. But what he actually says is, okay, fine, thank you. That's really not necessary. And then he says, why don't you tell me how you're feeling, Alex, to Sam? And Sam says, I'm fine, I guess. I mean, okay, a little depressed, I guess. And Fuller is writing this all down and says, okay, any idea why? And Sam says, probably because I started the apocalypse. And Dr. Fuller is like, the apocalypse? And Sam's like, yeah, that's right. And Dr. Fuller looks at Dean, who smiles. And Dr. Fuller says, and you think you started it? And Sam's like, well, yeah, I mean, I killed this demon Lilith, and I accidentally freed Lucifer from hell, so now he's topside, and we're trying to stop him. And Dr. Fuller looks back at Dean, who's like, oh, fuck's sake. And he says, who is? And Sam says, me, and him. And he points at Dean, and this one angel. And Dr. Fuller's like, oh, you mean like an angel on your shoulder? And Sam says, no, his name's Castiel. He wears a trench coat. Like, completely matter of fact. And the doctor's just going back to his notes. And I thought this would be the perfect time to interject the angel on our shoulder, which is Navia. So let's hear what Navia has to say about this episode.
Hello, witches. This is Navya, your favorite fandom psychologist. I love that you all wanted to get a mental health take on this episode because there is just so much here to dive into. This entire episode feels like an indictment of the mental health system. I mean, the only positive representation of the system here is the doctor from Dean's hallucination. Abandon all hope, as the name suggests, ends on a very bleak note, and it feels more than a little harsh to go from that to our regularly scheduled programming of the Monster of the Week format. But when it comes to grief and trauma, it's easy to carry on with your everyday lives until something knocks you out of your routine, which in Sam and Dean's case was them being drugged. So in a way, their lack of response to the trauma was a trauma response in and of itself. And beyond that, their drug-addled brains help them bypass conscious denial into healing themselves. Dean's response to this is hallucinating a doctor that's actually trying to help. And Sam, being a little bit more self-aware, his response is all the anger and guilt that he's been feeling all season coming right to the surface so he can address it. All in all, I think it's a very interesting representation of trauma and grief, certainly going beyond the typical depression that you see in media.
Which I think is a really good point. Like, something that I've heard said before by other professionals who've spoken about Supernatural is that its portrayal of mental health situations feels more visceral than you do in a lot of other shows, especially from this era. It feels deeper. It feels more right somehow. I think a lot of people feel like they have representation in it. It was really interesting to me, her delving into the actual psychology of Sam and Dean. We might have to have her back for another special guest spot to dig a little deeper on that one. But I love what she said about Sam's anger is actually him processing finally what's going on. And that is because he's more aware. Whereas for Dean, it's like he has hallucinated a doctor who is trying to help him. It's like his darkest, deepest inner thoughts and self. And it's like when I was joking before about the real Ghostbusters being like forced like role play therapy kind of a thing, it's like that again for Dean. Like Dean, I feel like has to be like he's got to be dragged a little bit. You know, it's his personality. He's got to be dragged a little bit towards it.
Dean definitely could benefit from therapy and like really, really do him some good.
Yeah. So she also had some extra points that she added for me after her phone in. So I'm going to go ahead and talk through some of those now. So she said one thing that she thought was really interesting about Sam and Dean ended up being drugged like this, and it ended up sort of helping their brains heal themselves, is the fact that now in recent years, there's been a lot of research, especially focusing on the neuroscientific approaches to trauma, like deep-rooted, hardcore, intense trauma, like what we see Sam and Dean having, and psychotropics and marijuana, and how they have shown to have a lot of positive benefits in those specific instances. And she's saying, I'm not saying that Supernatural was trying to allude to that necessarily, because I do think that they're sort of later on the episode, they put it in a slightly negative light, saying, oh, it was all a trick. But she thinks that it's very, very interesting because at the time point when these episodes were coming out and was when these sorts of papers were actually being written. And a lot of people who had these kinds of experiences, who had this sort of traumatic experience, were experimenting with these drugs. And some people were self-medicating and stuff like that as well. And they were publicly reporting that it had anecdotal positive benefits. So now we have more of these peer-reviewed studies and random control trials, but back in the day, this was still happening. It was just not being taken seriously because it's like, oh, it makes you hallucinate and you should only use it like a recreational capacity. Whereas now it's like, okay, you can actually also use it in a therapeutic setting, and it has been shown to be beneficial. And she said, just to give us more of a holistic mental health perspective in terms of what that specific plot line. And she thought it was really interesting the way that they portrayed that, because it could have gone either way. Yeah. And then she goes on to say that like people, thousands of years before our kind of modern practices had been using it that way, which she thought was interesting to acknowledge too. So basically, I thought that was all like really fascinating because I didn't think about that aspect at all. Like, because the wraith does make them hallucinate. It's like the venom, isn't it, that makes them hallucinate. And the thing is that they do get benefits out of it. They both get a kind of therapy out of it, as Navia has pointed out. So I thought that was such an interesting take that like I literally never would have come up with.
No. Although it does make Sam angry. I don't know if that was the venom, but it makes Sam angry, and he's definitely got some anger issues going on.
Well, so it's interesting because it gets pointed out in the episode that he has anger issues. And what Navia was saying was that like him getting in touch with his anger the way that he is means that he's finally processing all the stuff that's happened. Because when you think about it, I think she's really, of course she is, because she's like a genius. But like I do think she's really right about this, because when you think about Sam's character through all of the previous seasons, there is literally no point where he actually addresses his feelings, aside from maybe when he first walked out to go to university and he walks out on John and Dean. Mm-hmm. But then now he gets pulled back into this family dynamic that ends up with Jess being killed and Dean putting him in a lot of these different situations that he's really uncomfortable with, and then dragging him down this road and treating him like a freak. So he has a lot of bottled rage, I think. And I think that's part of the point that Navia is making to us, is that like in the episode, they're criticizing him and telling him he has this horrible temper. And like, yes, he does react violently. So I don't want to downplay that. And I don't think she is either. But I think she's saying that him finally being in touch with his actual feelings and actually starting to like try and figure them out is interesting, and looks like he's on the road to like starting to realize things.
Yeah, definitely.
And Navia, if I got any of that wrong, you can tell us in the comments and correct me. And I'll print a correction. But I loved your thoughts. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Navia, you're going to have to now be our like resident doctor person. Dr. Fangirl.
Our Dr. Navia. Yeah. Dr. Fangirl. Put it on a t-shirt, and then we give her the t-shirt that says Dr. Fangirl.
That's like in Changing Channels.
Changing Channels, yeah, with Dr. Sexy.
Doctor. Also, she did say about after Abandon All Hope having this episode afterwards, but I do think we kind of need a bit of a more lighthearted, although I suppose it wasn't really that lighthearted because it is about mental health.
Yeah, this one, I don't know, it's got a lot of comedy,
but like the Monster of the Week,
it's horrible and dark and scary.
I appreciated it for what it was after Abandon All Hope, because I needed to get my hope back.
You needed to get your hope back after that, yeah. You put it down, you pick it back up again.
I'd abandoned it.
In the form of silliness from Dean. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and read you guys my anonymous friend's thoughts. And then we're going to dive back into the episode, because I think this is a good way of doing it so that we can like consider as we're going through what her points are. Informed. And also briefly, I'm going to talk about in my film degree, So really briefly, just to tie everything together, we do speak about like how can we as storytellers, how can we as filmmakers or as film critics ensure that when we're looking at a genre like horror, which does deal with a lot of psychological things, that we're not stereotyping people or making things worse? Because the stories that we put out into the world can create healing, or they can create unconscious bias, outright bias, or really negative reactions. And I also have a little bit of a paper that I want to read on this before I go into my friend's notes very briefly. It's like a really brief excerpt. And I think that you guys should definitely give it a read as well in full if you find it interesting, because this woman is a genius, and she effectively put together a lot of the things that I really wanted to say and points that I really wanted to make. So like in my degree, they gave us the example of Norman Bates in Psycho, Michael Myers in Halloween, and Silence of the Lambs. You look at like Hannibal Lecter. So we look at representations of things like psychosis in cinema, and how you're getting usually violence,
the bad guys.
Yeah, like bad guys, like villains. So they brought this up to us because as the next generation of filmmakers, they wanted us to think about this. Like, is this something that we really want to perpetuate in the media that we're making, in the stories that we're telling? And I think that Supernatural, this episode, is in an interesting place between like trying to do something about it, trying to bridge it, trying to maybe make a piece of satire, versus what we see in traditional media. So there's the piece that I'm going to read to you is called Exploring Mental Health in Horror Fiction, Crossover and Representation by Alice Sewell. And she wrote this for Tandem Collective. And all of the links and credits are in my show notes. I've edited this a bit for the episode. So the full unabridged thing, I would suggest you go to her site and read it. So she makes the point that mental health and horror have this long, complicated relationship in film, and that since 1920 with the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which is basically like the first horror film, the horror genre has played with the connection between mental health conditions and violence, and the association is a damaging one, reinforcing misguided ideas about the nature of mental health disorders, from psychosis to dissociative identity disorder, or DID, and boosting the stigma that surrounds people suffering from those conditions. She says that there are innumerable narratives in the horror genre that use a history of mental illness to explain away extreme violence enacted by the villain. It's an overused trope that ignores the reality of mental health conditions in favor of a shortcut to drama. Often there's a lack of distinction between different conditions, leading to a misconception about mental illness that spreads widely beyond a dangerously wrong association with violent behavior. Furthermore, narratives featuring characters experiencing a mental health condition who conquer their symptoms, or who turn out to be the quote-unquote good guy, are rare to non-existent. V. Medina writes in Uncanny Magazine, quote, "Instead of uncomfortable, I started to get annoyed, even angry at the patterns I saw. The people who were obviously mentally ill, the people who were like me, were never the heroes. If I was lucky, they'd be the victims, but never the last one standing, or even the one who took the bad guy with them in the climatic showdown. More often, they were the bad guys, the villains, the tormentors, the people who were supposed to scare me." She goes on to talk about psychiatric hospitals being a setting for horror narratives, and that also bolsters the idea that serious mental health illnesses predicates violent, dangerous behavior. The hospitals are constructed as places of terror and suffering, never of healing and support, and the resulting stereotypes not only cause people who have never experienced mental illness to misunderstand what it's really like, but discourage people from speaking up and seeking help when they are struggling. Sneda Ahir Knight is just one of many voices raising concern about the popular association between horror and mental health, and writes, "I worry that some horrors are linking fear and revulsion to mental illness. Those with a mental illness are being depicted as monsters, a threat that causes fear and revulsion." So I just felt like that gives us a good footing. And now we're going to hear from my friend. So my friend said that the episode was really interesting and well written. As I said before, she said it was very unrealistic for a schizophrenic patient to be screaming that much and for them to not go check on them at all. They definitely wouldn't be ignored while screaming, "Help me." That some of it was accurate, as in the episode as a whole, was accurate to her experience as a patient. There's some stigma in there, but the stigma is handled through the lens of comedy so that you know that, like, as the viewer, they're not being serious. So, for instance, when they call Dean this narcissistic etc., etc. It's obviously satire. She says she thinks the show did a decent job, and she thinks even how casual the other patients are about other patients saying things. She says it's very normal for the staff to be blasé towards the patients, and that's where she reads the monster as a metaphor for those times when patients will raise valid concerns and the staff are kind of dismissive. So in this way, it feels as though, like Navia says, the show can be seen as advocating for patients. She says that people shouldn't be scared of hospitals, but it's also not a vacation. It's a serious medical visit that at times can be boring, like I said before. She says there needs to be more accountability where the staff are concerned because they're overseeing very vulnerable people. And that when pointing out issues with one member of staff to another, saying, oh, that's just how they are about it, it's very different from having, say, a bad coworker at a bank. So staff could listen more to patient feedback. So if, for instance, you saw someone and you pointed out that you felt that they were treating one patient very differently from another and you thought it was unfair or you thought they were being really short or whatever it is, if you go as a patient and raise that concern, that those concerns can be very much dismissed and they can be very blasé about it. And she thinks that that could be improved, that there could be more communication between the personal GP that the ingoing patient has and nurses and the mental health GP and nurses, because you get two sets, right? You have the people that you saw before you get referred into the hospital, and then there's the set of people that are going to treat you while you're in the hospital. She says that aftercare communication is the same. So there's a gap before care and there's also a gap after care. She feels that the ball can get dropped, and that things like she also has asthma. Her asthma follow-ups were never dropped. So she goes into hospital for asthma. She comes out of hospital after the asthma attack has been treated, and they always follow up with her. Whereas with her mental health, after leaving the hospital, there was way less in terms of reliability of follow-ups. She says that often people need a little follow-up push because after you leave the hospital, many people want to sort of avoid it. And if the aftercare had a bit more thought in it, it would be better. She believes there's a lot of bias in the diagnosis process. And she thinks that if you're going to do a hospital stay anyway, like as in if you're already going to be admitted to the hospital, that it would be better if there was an observation over time that included nurses and not just the doctor, as her impression tends to be that nurses tend to know the patients a lot better. And it should be multiple nurses, not just the opinion of one nurse, depending on the family intake from friends and family as well. So like people who know you really well so that you could get a better depth for the diagnosis. And also she would love to see more inclusion of actual scientific tests that are fully conclusive. So things like brain scans, but that they don't tend to do because of funding, because it's expensive, basically. She says there are certain tests that could be run that would be really helpful in diagnosis, but that because they're expensive, it's not happening. She says that for care in the country of Canada in specific, just more consistency in care. So more groups, more creative outlets, more coping skills, life worth living skills, because she told me there's a life worth living class that is really helpful that teaches people who are struggling to figure out ways to make their life feel like it's worth living when they leave. And she thought that was really good. And she thought that there could be a little bit more of that was fantastic and they could do more. She'd like to see
like all patients rather than not just like people that might have depression or like suicidal ideation and things like that.
I'm not 100% sure that I can answer that question.
Oh, okay.
I think it's
good for
if
everyone.
they think that it's a concern or they want to improve their life, I believe they're put into that particular group, but I can't say that for 100%. I think it's a great idea though.
Yeah.
So more coping skills, more life worth living skills, more hobby things available in the game rooms. She said that at one place that she was at, they offered the patients snack baskets in the evening, and she thought that was fantastic. That one of her criticisms of other facilities that she was in was that they like seriously frowned on people having any form of snack. Like you would ask for food and they'd just be like, no. So she was like, certain other facilities could take note, like evening snack baskets are a win.
So always amazing.
Yeah, 100%. She says that all facilities have pros and cons. She says that she's noticed racial stigma, that there is higher threat perception placed on people of color. They get sedated and perceived as more violent when white people do not. And she criticizes that. She thinks that better like anti-racism training needs to be had by staff. She said that there's weight stigma and that people who are considered mid-sized or overweight are treated differently, especially in eating disorder treatments. Yeah. And that made me think of like Kate in This Is Us. Mm-hmm. And like how people don't always get help when they need help because of an appearance thing, that's a bias. Like that really is a bias. So again, it's getting rid of stigma, getting rid of bias, treating people as people and not letting those labels or things that we see on the surface dictate their treatment. She also talks about diagnosis stigma. So she's like, for instance, is a specific disorder might be associated with manipulation or attention seeking, and then that patient might get stereotyped that way and be dismissed unfairly if they bring up an issue, and that could be improved. Yeah, so like overall, these are the ways that we as a community can come together and advocate for people who might need our help, for ourselves, for, the hospitals, the doctors, the nurses, anyone listening. These are the notes that somebody who's been in the system has. Obviously, I can't say this is worldwide, and she was very careful to say that she's experienced these facilities in Canada only, and she is a white person. So she's been careful to like make that very clear. But I feel like this is so helpful and could be applied in different ways. I think it's information that could be taken in by the people who are in charge of stuff. These are improvements that could be made. This is what people are asking for. This is what my friend is asking for. And so I hope that this is helpful. And I hope that as we go forward with the episode, we can really kind of think about it. And that's the lore for this episode.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, that's really interesting. And I like how, like, she said that, well, both her and Navia have both said that the episode actually does quite a good job.
Yeah.
Because normally, like we said, in media, like film and things, it doesn't. Or it's played for jokes or whatever.
The jokes are like really clearly at the expense of people instead of as a way to express points. Whereas they're saying that like, this is a way to express points, and I fucking love that. I love our show. I love Supernatural so much. I'm not going to say that it doesn't have any faults. And I'm not going to say that there's no stigma attached within this episode whatsoever, but I will say that I feel like they're trying to improve and they're trying to break things down, and I love them. I love them for that. I think that's so beautiful.
And especially for the time that this episode was like filmed and made. Like they're definitely trying to like make it different.
I agree. I completely agree. And I think that my friend would agree, based on her points that we've heard. And I was thrilled, and like I really hope she watches more Supernatural. That would thrill me. I am the gateway drug to Supernatural watching. So yeah. No, I love this so much. And this episode does have some really fun and funny points, like you said. So we're just going to dive back in. We're just going to dive back in.
And this whole bit where we left off was like Sam basically saying what is actually happening in his life to make himself sound like he's mentally ill, so they get admitted. And I wrote my notes, don't they say that all good lies have an element of truth? He's just saying what's actually happening in his life.
It's amazing. So Dean turns to the doctor and is like, see what I mean, Doc? The kid's been beating himself up about this for months. The apocalypse wasn't his fault. And Dr. Fuller's like, what the hell is happening now? So he's like, it's not. And Dean says, no, there was this other demon, Ruby. She got him addicted to demon blood, and near the end he was practically chugging this stuff. And he's like, huh. The plot thickens. And Dean's like, my brother's not evil. He was just high. Yeah? So could you fix him up so we can get back to traveling around the country and hunting monsters? And he's like, wait. And then he goes, like, Irma, cancel my lunch. He's like, yeah, everybody needs me. And then we learn that this was all a plot, right? And we also meet this adorable, cute, happy nurse, which it was a trap. We find out later. But anyway, yeah, so Dean's like, both, me too. And she says, yes, sugar. The doctor thinks that would be best. And then they give each other like their happiest smiles because they're like, yes, we got in.
I always kind of wanted them to do like a high five.
Yeah. I was waiting for
obvious.
it. I was waiting for it.
So then they are processed, ? Is that the word?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
It sounds like they've been arrested.
Admitted?
Admitted, yeah. But they have like a checkup and then they meet up afterwards and Dean says that he can't believe he let Sam talk him into this. It turns out that they are there to see another hunter who's a patient there. Sam says it's probably good for them to be in there for a while and mentions how he's worried about Dean after Joe and Ellen died. And I was like, Dean can't possibly grieve or talk about his feelings. That would be unmanly.
Feelings.
Sam's definitely like the least toxic as far as like toxic masculinity goes, but he's still, is still a little bit. But he's more in touch with his feelings, and that's why I love him.
I love letter to Sam from Laura. Yep. So they meet each other in their new duds. They make a movie joke. Actually, it's a reference to the movie Silkwood, where there's a harsh decontamination shower. So that's a shower joke. So I didn't know what that was about. Yeah. I had to go and look it up. And Sam's saying that there was good water pressure, and then he's like, did the nurse? And Dean says she was very thorough. And Sam's like, yeah, good, yeah. and then we move on. So they basically then tell us about the case. So we realize that Martin, who's the guy that they're in here to help, saved John a lot and that he was a great hunter until something happened to him in Albuquerque, which we don't know what it is yet. And Sam's like, I just think we need to get busy, and doesn't really talk about what's going on that much. And then he says that Dean's been worrying him, and that's where he's like, I'm not talking about my feelings about Ellen or Joe. I'll never talk about my feelings. I don't
want to talk about my girlfriend dying.
Yeah. So then we see Martin. Martin comes up and he's like, Sam, Dean, wow, you boys got big. You look good.
Yeah, they did.
Little giants. And yeah, they do. Yeah. And Sam's like, thanks, you do too, Martin. And then he's like, oh, well, thanks for coming. And so then this is when he breaks it down and he says, in the old days, I really could have done it myself, but now. And then Sam's like, what do you think we're hunting? And he says, I don't know. A ghost, a demon, animal, vegetable, mineral. And then he kind of laughs and he says, hospitals had 5 deaths in the last 4 months. Doctors keep calling it suicides, but they're wrong. And Sam's like, so you've seen it? And Martin's like, no. He shakes his head. And Dean says, has anyone seen this thing? And Martin says, well, a couple of patients have glimpses, but there's not a lot to go on. And Dean asks if they're reliable. And he's like, oh, sure. Why wouldn't they be? And Dean goes, gee, I don't know. And Martin says, I know you boys think I'm a bag of loose screws. Now, you wouldn't be wrong, but I wouldn't have called you unless there was something here. I can feel it in my gut. And Dean and Sam are exchanging looks. And Sam says, we believe you. Have you checked any of the bodies, found signs of an attack? And Martin says, well, no, I don't go around dead. And then he kind of stutters and he goes, bodies anymore. And this is the first sign that he's vulnerable to us, that he's a vulnerable person. Because before this, they're having this conversation and he seems like, we don't know him, but we assume he seems like himself. So Dean doesn't know what to make of this because he's never seen Martin vulnerable, right? And then Dr. Fuller walks up and says, Alex, Eddie. And they turn around and he's like, well, I'm glad to see you're making friends. Why don't you and Mr. Creaser? And I was like, Mr. Creaser, it's a Brad Creaser reference.
Yeah. All right.
I love it when they talk in unison. Yeah. So it was so cute. And he says, right this way. And then he holds up with Dean. And he says, actually, I'm going to be putting you in the afternoon group. And Dean's like, what? Why? And he says, well, to be frank, the relationship that you have with your brother seems dangerously codependent. And I think a little time apart will do you both good.
I mean, that is true.
Yeah.
He's not lying.
No.
So Sam and Mr. Creaser, Sam and Martin are in the first group, and they go to the group, and then Ted, who's the patient who saw Susan die at the beginning, he brings up the monster, and the doctor tries to stop him because he says it isn't good for the group, and Ted says, I agree. You know what else isn't good for the group? A monster eating all of our faces off. And
amen, Ted. You tell him.
Ted with the truth bombs.
Ted with the truth. I love it. Truthful Ted.
And then the doctor gets annoyed, saying that there's no monster. But there isn't there.
And then another patient says, yeah, and it was an alien, like on X-Files. And Ted is like, stop it. Stop helping.
Trying to help me. Because I'm actually telling the truth.
Yeah.
And you're making it seem like I'm not.
Yeah.
I felt for Ted. So then in the patient lounge, another doctor comes over to talk to Dean while he's playing checkers with himself, which was funny.
Yep.
And he basically flirts with her. But she's not real.
He flirts with his hallucination.
Yeah.
Yeah. She is really pretty. So
I thought that you might like her. I think she's a thirst trap.
You are correct. You've gauged my taste in women well. It's because she looks like Xena. Okay, she looks like Mr. Wallace.
She did.
I was like, oh my god, she's beautiful.
She definitely reminded me of someone, and I think that might have been who it was.
Yeah. My brain just started playing the intro to Xena. I was going to be like, hey,
stop thinking about Xena. Focus.
I can't. Okay. So
I sidetracked you.
You did. Dean moves a piece on the board and then goes, "King me," and then he laughs to himself because he thinks he's hilarious. And then the doctor walks up and is like, "Eddie," and he looks up at her and she says, "I'm Dr. Erica Cartwright. I've been assigned to your case." And Dean says, "You're my shrink," and then he smiles all like flirtatiously and goes, "Heh, lucky me." And I'm like rolling my eyes like typical Dean, you know. Yeah. And she says, "And you're my paranoid schizophrenic with narcissistic personality disorder and religious psychosis." I applaud myself for getting that line out, honestly. She closes her file and smiles at him, and Dean looks awkward. And she's like, "Can we talk?" And he says, "Yes, actually, I got some questions for you." And she's like, "Oh, what a coincidence. I've got some for you too." And he's like, "Well, then quid pro quo, Clarice." And he goes, it makes the Hannibal Lecter noise. And she's like, "Okay, Hannibal, I'll go first." How many hours a night do you sleep? And Dean's like, 3 or 4 every couple of nights. What can you tell me about the recent suicides here? She says they were tragic. Dean asks her if she's seen weird signs like smoke or sulfur. And she says, "No, why? What's that supposed to mean?" And Dean says, "Demon signs. I hunt demons, monsters, that kind of thing." And Dr. Cartwright says, "How many drinks do you have a week?" Which in the context is even funnier. And Dean says, "Well, I gotta sleep sometime." So, what's 7 days times somewhere in the mid-50s? You ever feel any cold spots or get a chill walking through the hospital? And she's like,
"Does the radio ever keep going on and off?"
Yeah. Yeah. She asked when the last time he was in a long-term relationship, and he's like, how do you mean? What's long-term? Who is that? And she says, "More than 2 months." And he says, "Never." So she asks if the patients have seen anything weird, and she goes, "In here," and then she laughs all the time. And Dean's like, "Oh yeah, right." And then she says that she's going to talk about his father.
Don't open up that can of worms. Also, in my initial notes, so I wrote, bear in mind, this is as I was watching it.
Yeah.
Why did she just come up and talk to him in the middle of the rec room rather than in an office? That was weird. And then I wrote, future me. Yes, that's because she's not real.
Good job, Laura. You know things. I had no idea. I was like, I don't know if that's normal or not.
I was just like, this just seems like a conversation they should be having in like a private office
area.
Not in the middle of the games room or whatever.
Yeah, that does make sense. Now that you've said it out loud, it makes sense. So Dean follows a bunch of patients down the hallway, and he looks really depressed. And Sam's like, "Hey, are you okay?" And Dean's like, "I just got thraped. So no, I am not okay. Tell me you found something."
Is this a Deanism, or is this actually something that people say?
I will ask Dr. Google. Hang on.
Because I was like, I don't know how I feel about that.
It is literally a supernatural slang that gets used from this episode, talking about having your emotions or psychological issues ruthlessly exposed and dissected by a therapist.
So it's a Deanism then?
It looks like it is a Deanism.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was hoping it wasn't a real thing, so that's good.
Yeah. So Sam says a guy says he saw the creature. We should talk to him. You want to meet here in an hour? And Dean's like, yeah, the sooner we take care of this thing, the sooner we can get going. This place gives me the creeps because he's trying to avoid his feelings and thoughts forever. As usual. He turns around, and this is the first time that we see Wendy. So she's like this very attractive girl who's also a patient. She puts her hand upon Dean and Frenches him hard.
Yeah.
And Sam is just standing there super awkwardly. And Wendy's like, hi. And Dean's like, hi. And she's like, I'm Wendy. And he's like, uh-huh. And then she walks past.
Sam's just like being so awkward in the background. It was really funny.
Which is fair, yeah.
He's done that so many times. Like whenever Dean has been kissing women when they've finished cases or whatever, he's always just like standing in the background. It's like, Sam, go away.
Yeah. We're sitting in the Impala in front of the fucking hotel room.
Just so awkward.
So weird. Anyway, she walks past, smacks Dean on the butt. Dean smirks at Sam and says, maybe this place isn't going to be so bad after all. And Sam goes, dude, you cannot hit that. And he watches Wendy walk away and he's like, oh, so torn. It's like having a conscience versus not having a conscience.
I did think that was funny, although I didn't appreciate that. But I thought it was funny.
Yeah. Same.
Cannot hit that.
Cannot hit that.
So that night when the nurses are on their rounds, Sam and Dean sneak around trying to speak to Ted. But as they walk down the corridor, they hear a man scream, and Ted is being thrown around the room. Sam tries to pick the lock, and Dean tells Sam to hurry up, and he says, back off, Dean. Did you think that was more aggressive than needed? Like, he was already really angry here.
Yeah.
And I don't know, now looking back on it, if that was on purpose, because obviously Sam has anger issues later.
Yeah, I think
but it was like, Dean was just like, come on, hurry up. And
yeah.
I could see Sam being like, just back off, I'm trying to do it. But he gets really aggressive. Anyway, and then when they open the door, Ted is hanging from a beam, which I was trying to work out where this beam was in the room. And I think it was just a set thing so they could actually do this scene, because I was like, I don't think that beam exists. And then, yeah, oh no, poor Ted is what I wrote. So then...
Ted is dead.
Yeah.
Dead Ted. A poem.
So then we cut to Sam and Dean inspecting Ted's body. How did they manage to get in there?
Okay. You know how we talk about Laura's horror of children and dolls and like clowns and shit? This is mine. Okay, it's medical horror. Medical horror is what does me. This was horrific. I was not okay. And the whole finding the small hole in the neck thing when they examined the dead body and then sticking the stick in it.
Like a swab thing. Yeah, that was disgusting.
Because I was like, oh no, they're examining the hole. And I was like, that's horrific as it is. And then Sam sticks the stick in it. And I wrote, oh no, it got so much worse. Gagging.
Yeah, it was disgusting.
Yeah.
And then the brain bit was also disgusting.
Yeah.
So he cuts it. Gross. He decides to cut his head open to see what's going on.
Oh yeah, I think that's another part where it was just like gagging. That was the gagging part because it's like brain. And then when he pulls the brain out, it's all fucked up and wrong, and it looks like a mushroom.
Yeah.
I cannot.
No, that was gross.
I just want to tell you that my scare rating is 10. It's a 10. I think it's the only 10 I've ever given. It's a 10.
So I don't like it. For you, it's like a scare thing for it, but like I just think it's absolutely gross. I don't like it either, but it doesn't scare me. I'm just like, ew. Yeah.
I had a full-blown body horror shudder.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so while Sam is basically cutting this guy's head open and inspecting his brain, he asks Dean to keep watch. And Dean hears someone coming and goes back in, where Sam is then holding up part of the brain and saying that it's been sucked dry. Ew. And then they're caught in the room by the nurse, and they don't really know what to say. So Dean pulls down his trousers and says, pudding. And then my initial notes were, oh, this is where that comes from. Because I've seen that where that comes from.
Yeah.
And I did wonder how it fit into the context. And yeah, he's mentally ill is the context. And also, I'm going to probably say something a bit controversial here. I thought it was stupid.
Thank you, because actually same. I know everybody loves it, but you can hear his bits smacking together.
Oh, that bit was gross.
Bro,
That was gross. I was like, the Foley people really didn't need to do that.
No, that
unless
was
it wasn't
necessary.
Unless it wasn't Foley and it was actually his junk. But yeah, that was gross. I did not want that sound effect.
I know that everyone loves it, and I just don't. Like, I just feel like it's dumb. I agree with Laura. It's dumb because it's like, okay, here's practically. I have two. Number one, practically, it's dumb because he doesn't have anything. There's nothing going on with him that is supposed to make him act this way. So him acting this way, it looks like he's faking it. All right? I don't know. Yeah. I just don't know how it's supposed to go with what he's supposed to have. And then also, it feels kind of derogatory because it's supposed to be in good fun. And I think it is done in a loving sense of humor way, not in a bad way, but I just feel like he went full Tropic Thunder. Okay? He went full Tropic Thunder. And it sort of makes me feel a little uncomfortable, the whole pudding moment. And that's my honest opinion.
I'm glad that you didn't like it as well, because I was like, oh no, people are going to hate me. People are going to stop listening.
They're going to hate us together. We are Hookman. Hear us roar.
I did find a fun fact though, which is apparently the first draft of the script, it was the pudding line was supposed to be said by Sam, but then Jared and Jensen swapped it at the time, and I think they made the right call because they said that they thought they felt like it fit his character better, and it definitely does.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's definitely a Dean if Sam did that, you'd be like, "What the fuck? No,
not a Sam thing.
Sam
would never.
He would never. Sam would never. That's another like T-shirt.
Not my sweet baby angel Sam.
No, he's perfect.
He wouldn't slap his junk around
in front of a woman.
Oh, Dean.
While shouting about desserts. Whereas with Dean, it kind of tracks. Like, you look at that and you're like, yeah, that's believable.
Yeah, definitely. They made the right call there.
Yeah.
Although they could have just left the whole thing out.
Yeah. Although that's our unpopular opinion. That's our hot take. That's probably our hottest supernatural take. Next supernatural hot take, we don't like pudding. Everybody's like, no.
I'm gonna make it an out of context quote, and then we'll see. All the haters will be
just
in the comments.
Followers just drop.
Wait, what do you mean you don't like it? It's iconic.
And they leave.
People are entitled to different opinions.
It's true. Cut to the patient lounge later, and we see Martin, Sam, and Dean looking at paintings of clowns on the walls. And Dean makes the joke, "Are those original Gacy's?" And then laughs to himself.
That was quite a funny joke.
Yeah. And Martin's like, "I painted those." And Sam's like, "Back on the point, please." So whatever this thing is. And then Dean to Martin about the pictures. It's good.
It's like, oh, oops. There it is. Yeah. I'll say something nice now.
Sam says it slurpees your brain and sucks you dry.
Ew.
Dean says, yeah. Then it makes the desk look like suicides. Any ideas? And Martin goes, yeah, bad one. And it's very like, dun dun dun.
It's lore time.
Lore time. Now, for those of you who have listened to our other episodes, you're going to know that I've covered things like wraiths already. So that's why we have mental health lore, where we can make a difference, maybe, instead of wraith lore, because like also their version of a wraith is kind of yes, but also kind of no. So I've done it before. It's been done. We're moving on.
Yeah.
So
we'll just give you what he says, the lore in the show.
The show lore. So, Dean says, what is it? And he says, well, I bet you a chicken dinner. It's what we're up against, a wraith. They crack open skulls and feed on brain juice. And Sam's like, you ever tangle with one before? And Martin's like, never wanted to, neither. And Dean says, so how do we kill it? And I was like, Martin's from the country. He bets you a chicken dinner, and he says, neither. It's one of my people. Martin says, silver. You so much as touch a wraith with the stuff and the skin will crackle. Now that's the good news. The bad news is they can pass as humans. And they all look around the room like, oh my gosh. Martin says it could be any Peter, Paul, and Mary in the joint. And Dean's like, fantastic. So how do we find it? And he says a mirror. Laura says a wraith will show its true form in a mirror. And Dean's like, oh great. So we just got to spot check every single person in here. And Sam's like, yeah. But I mean, what's it doing in a mental hospital? And Dean says, a nut house? It's a perfect captive victim pool. And Martin's like, sure, who's going to believe a patient when they say they saw a monster? It's the perfect hunting ground.
My initial thoughts, I basically fell into what the writers were obviously trying to make us think, because I was like, I bet it's the doctor, like Dr. Fuller.
Yeah.
And I was like, or it's Dean's shrink.
Yeah.
And that's obviously what the writers wanted us to think, because that's what they both think to start with as well.
Yeah, I thought the possibilities
Red
were
herrings.
the nurse that it turned out to be, because Dean made that Nurse Ratchet joke to her. You know how he is always fucking right. His intuition is always spot on. I was like, it's her. And then
she didn't even
I was like, this bitch is too
her.
Nice. I don't trust
too
her.
Smiley.
She's too smiley. And then the doctor, I was like, it could be her, but that's too much like the Siren episode then. And then with the doctor, we already had Dr. Ellicott being the bad guy. So I was like, it could be him, but he feels like he's being set up as a red herring. So I was like, it's either the lady doctor and they're repeating that storyline, or it's the nurse. And
I totally fell for all the red herrings.
I went back and forth about it. And then I decided that it had to be the nurse, and then I was right. And then I was like, okay, but are you right, or do you just subconsciously remember this episode because you have seen this before? So I don't know how much credit I can really give myself. But yeah, that was what I thought this watch through. So he sees Dr. Cartwright again. We cut to Dean being alone, trying to figure out who's the Wraith by staring in this mirror as everybody walks past. And his hot shrink walks up, and Dean says, "What's up, Doc?" And I was like, Bugs Bunny, my favorite. And she's like, you tell me. And then he tells her that he's hunting a wraith, and he tells her what the monster sort of things are. And Dr. Cartwright asks him if there's a quota. How many people does he have to save? Because he kind of says that saving people is what he does. And Dean says all of them.
All of them, yeah.
All of them. And she's like, all of them? You think you have to save everyone? And he's like, yep, whole wide world of sports. And she's like, how? And he doesn't answer. And she says, believe me, whatever you've got, I've heard weirder. And he says, it's the end of the world, okay? I mean, it's a damn biblical apocalypse. And if I don't stop it and save everyone, then no one will, and we'll all die. And Cartwright is like, that's horrible. And Dean's like, yeah, tell me about it. And Cartwright's like, no, I mean, apocalypse or no apocalypse, monsters or no monsters, that's a crushing weight to have on your shoulders. To feel like 6 billion lives depend on you. God, how do you get up in the morning? And he's like, that's a good question. I was like, he drinks a shelf. So Dr. Fuller walks up and says, hello, Eddie. And he goes, Doc. And then as he's walking past, he sees his face as this like horrible, decaying, dead thing. And that's how they're representing the wraiths. Like they look like decaying people. It's bleh, horrible, scary, jump scare.
Yeah. And in my notes, I wrote, I knew it. I didn't know it.
She did not, in fact, know it.
I did not.
Spoiler.
So now it's night, and Sam and Dean and Martin are in the corridor. Sam has raided the nurses' stations to get them all some silver-plated letter openers. Handy. Wendy sees them and comes over, and Dean at first is like, oh, no, not today, sweetheart, keep walking. But then she kisses Sam instead this time. And then she put, I want him now. He's larger. And then walks away.
He is larger.
Yeah. I would want him more too.
I was kind of thinking you were going to say something like that, and you didn't disappoint.
So then they make a plan for how they're going to get Dr. Fuller, and they talk about what actually happened to Martin in, was it Albuquerque?
Oh yeah, it's basically like that after lights out, all 3 of them have to go. That was the plan. And Dean's like, they've got to get past security, the orderlies, and then cut his throat, basically. And it's going to suck start to finish, but they need the backup. And he's like, oh, no, I can't. And then Sam says they know what happened in Albuquerque. And he says, you don't know the half of it. God, I used to be just like you two. I used to think I was invincible. And then, well, I found out I'm not. And Dean says, you're still a hunter. And Martin says, no, I'm not. I'm useless. Why do you think I checked myself into the Hotel California? And I was like, oh, that's an amazing reference. Because in the Hotel California, you check yourself in, but you can never leave. Yeah. And then he says, I'd give anything to help you boys. I would, but I can't. I'm sorry. And then he walks away.
This also kind of reminded me of Bobby in that episode where he's saying that he's useless now because, like, he's got a physical disability.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. These hunters, they're putting too much pressure on themselves.
They are. So Sam, we see walking down a hallway holding the knife at the ready. He looks into each and every room as he passes. He sees Dr. Fuller heading his way and then stands up against the wall waiting. Fuller gets closer, and as he walks around the corner, Sam steps forward, raises the blade. Fuller puts up an arm as Sam brings the blade down, cutting the doctor on the arm. He's screaming. Sam takes another swing at it, but two big orderlies grab him and start trying to drag him away. But Sam fights back. He throws one of the orderlies off of him, and the other one basically he throws through a window, shattering it. He's like on one. He's like raged out, determined to kill this doctor. And we see Sam fighting a lot angrier, and Jared is amazing when he's
really scary when he's like this.
He's so good at honestly acting. Like he's just so good. He's so good at the fight choreography that they gave him too, because it's pretty rapid. And he just nails it.
It's because he's such a big, imposing guy that when he's being angry, he's actually really, really scary. But then when he does the puppy dog stuff, you're like, oh, he's like a big, gentle giant.
Yeah. So Martin interferes, luckily, because he sees that the doctor's arm looks completely normal. It's just a cut, right? So he knows he's not really the monster. And he's saying, no, look at it. The cut's not burning. And Sam looks at it. And Martin's like, it's not him. It's not him. So Sam starts to realize that something is really wrong, and he drops the knife.
Yeah. I would just like to point out that nothing good ever happens when Sam and Dean split up.
Fact. Yeah.
I did wonder how Sam's going to explain, like, how is he ever going to get out of this hospital once now he's just attacked, like, the main doctor?
Yeah, that was a question at the time that I think we were supposed to think that because it's supposed to add to the tension.
I was like, oh my god, he's going to be in here forever.
Yeah.
So then, the next scene is when Sam is high, basically, and it's funny because he always tells the truth when he's high.
Yeah.
Oh, and the boop got me.
Yeah. So Dean's like, "Are you okay?" And Sam's like, "No, I'm not okay. I am awesome." And Dean says, "They gave you something?" And Sam's like, "Oh yeah, they gave me everything. It's spectacular." And then he laughs. And Dean's like, "You're always a happy drunk?" And then he gets super serious again, because I don't know why they can't just give us a Sam is high or Sam is drunk and just leave it funny. This is my biggest resentment ever since Playthings. It's like, just let us have you're drunk and short. No, what is it? He says, you're bossy and short. That's it. You're bossy and short. So he gets really serious and he's like, the doctor's not a wraith. And Dean goes, I know. And then he looks super stunned, but it's hilarious because he's high as fuck. And Dean's like, I don't understand. I mean, I saw it in the mirror. It wasn't human. And Sam says to Dean, or you're seeing things. Maybe you're going crazy. And Dean's like, I'm not crazy. And Sam's like, well, come on. I mean, you've been at least half crazy for a long time. Ever since you got back from hell, or since before that even. I mean, we're in a mental hospital. Maybe you finally cracked, maybe you really are for real crazy.
He's planting a seed there.
Yep. And Dean's like, I just made a mistake. That's all. And Sam's like, yeah, okay, I know. But it doesn't seem like he really believes him. But then he's trying to comfort him. He's like, it's okay. Hey, look at me. And Dean looks at him and he says, it's okay because you're my brother and I still love you. And then Dean nods and Sam goes, boop.
Beeps his nose.
I love it when they talk in unison.
I love the boop.
The boop is great.
So then we see Dean walking down the corridor and Dr. Cartwright, who I'm going to call just Dr. Xena now. Dr. Xena joins him. At first, she's talking to him again about hunting and how it's a big job he feels he has to do. He says he's fine, because, obviously. And then she turns mean. And she says, come on, even you don't believe that. All this pressure that you're putting yourself under, all this guilt, it's killing you. You can't save everybody. You can't. And then this is where she gets mean. Hell, these days, you can't save anybody, Dean. And then she turns to leave. And Dean's like, what did you say? And she says, the truth, Dean, you got Ellen and Joe killed. Aw. You shot Lucifer, but you couldn't gank him. You couldn't stop Sam from killing Lilith. And oh yeah, you broke the first seal. All you do is fail. Did you really think that you, Dean Winchester, with a GED and a give 'em hell attitude, were going to beat the devil? And then she says, please, the world is going to burn and there's nothing you can do about it. Uh-oh.
Dean starts freaking out now. He's like, who are you? How do you know that stuff? And then in the background of the shot, there's been an orderly doing laundry this whole time, like trying to sort stuff out in the background. And he says, hey, settle down. And Dean's like, tell me. And the orderly walks around and starts approaching. He says, I said, settle down. And Dean's like, who are you? And he backs away from Dr. Cartwright a little and then looks at the orderly, but Dr. Cartwright is now gone. And he points at Dr. Cartwright, which he can still see, but no one else can, and says, "Who is she?" And the orderly is like, "Who?" And Dean says, "What are you, blind?" "Her." And the orderly says, "Pal, there's nobody there." And then Dean looks at the orderly, who looks back at Dr. Cartwright, who has this like super twisted smile on her face. And she says, "I'm not real, Dean. I'm in your head because you are going crazy." And then she's just vanished. And he's like, "Oh, fuck." He freaks out. And on his way past, he sees the happy nurse and the doctor. He passes a mirror where he sees that everyone looks like wraiths. And he's super freaked out. And we just see him kind of continuing on his way down the hall, trying to get somewhere, clearly. But he's really struggling.
Yeah. And then we cut back to Sam's room, and Dr. Fuller goes in to see him. And we find out it's at Sam's request. He apologizes about what he did. He says he's now had a moment of clarity and knows there's no such thing as monsters. And the doctor says, good, but that's the least of his worries because he has major anger issues. And then... yeah, so what he actually says is, well, I'm glad to hear you say that, but honestly, monsters are the least of your problems. People can learn to live with the delusions. But the anger I saw in you, you hurt those two men and you were going to kill me. The look in your eyes when you came after me, it was like you were barely even human, like a man possessed. And then Sam actually looks like he might start crying here, or either that or he's doing his puppy dog thing. I couldn't quite work it out.
I think he's about to cry.
Yeah. And he's asking if he can have a second chance. And Dr. Fuller says, well, it isn't a prison. You'll be allowed to go to the day room under supervision. And Sam thanks him. And he says, but if there's one more outburst, I'll transfer you to a facility that's equipped to handle violent patients and that they'll be far less forgiving. And we know that this isn't something that Sam wants to believe about himself, like the anger, because of the whole Lucifer thing.
Yeah.
Being a vessel.
Yeah.
And it has come up before, his anger, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. I feel like in this school episode a little bit. And also with Ruby, once we start seeing Ruby, see a bit more of it and a bit more of it.
This is like what Navi was saying about him being self-aware.
Yeah.
His delusions are about what, him, he knows this about himself.
Yeah, that's a really great point. So then we cut back to Sam, and he thinks that he's seeing Dean, but this is a hallucination. So Dean starts accusing him, saying that it's not demon blood and it never was, and that the problem is Sam and always has been Sam, and that his lies and his arrogance, that he has a black spot on his soul, are the real problem. And Sam looks really confused. And then there are people around, like other patients, and they start saying, now we're going to die because of you. It's all your fault. You killed all of us, pathetic freak. And then they start shoving into him and calling him an evil son of a bitch, a loser. One of them says grow up and die, which makes literally no sense. And then somebody else calls him a freak after that. And Sam starts screaming, leave me alone. Obviously, there are no patients there, and he's just swinging wildly at the air, so the orderly tries to calm him down, and then he starts hitting the orderlies. Meanwhile, Dean is sitting helplessly at this table by the window, watching the whole thing, just doing absolutely nothing. Like he's
like really scared.
He's terrified of everything. He's fallen into himself at this point. So he's frozen, right? And Sam continues to fight and struggle and then gets dragged off, basically. And at the end, we close up on Dean, and Dean just goes, what's happening? What's happening? And he's terrified and vulnerable.
Yeah. I was thinking this too, because I was actually really concerned for Sam, because I'm like, he's going to be transferred. He's going to be split up properly from Dean. He'll never get out of there.
Yeah, it's really scary.
Yeah. So Dean then goes to Martin's room, but is almost attacked because Martin thinks he's the monster, or he thinks it's someone breaking in, and he almost stabs him with his letter opener. And he says that they're all going crazy. So Dean has worked out what's going on, though, and he thinks it might be someone poisoning them via venom or saliva, and he thinks it might be Wendy because she keeps kissing everyone. And that's a pretty solid theory, I thought.
It is a very solid theory.
He said, Wendy slobbered all over me and Sam. That's how we got infected. So then Martin and Dean make their way down to try and find Wendy. Dean was trying to not step on the cracks which was quite funny. And they hear a woman scream, and they run to Wendy's room where the nurse who signed them in, which he was called Happy Nurse in the transcript we were using.
Yeah.
She is hovering over Wendy's body, and Dean looks in the mirror and sees her like wraith face, and she smiles out at him. And this is why I wrote, it was the nurse. I didn't even suspect her.
Yeah. I was like, aha!
I do not like her protrusion. It's disgusting.
Ew.
Her like little spike thing on her hand.
Ew.
I didn't like it.
No. So, Martin is such a hero. I love Martin. Martin is one of my favorite characters.
Yeah, I like Martin.
He's like he starts out as quite vulnerable and afraid, but he ends up really, in my opinion, being like the hero of the episode. And that's another way in which I will praise Supernatural for this episode, because the person who's represented as mentally unstable is the person who really like saves the day, honestly. So that was really nice to see. So the Wraith is pinning Dean to the wall by the throat and punching him, and Martin grabs his blade and attacks the Wraith. The Wraith releases Dean and puts up a hand to shield herself. Martin cuts her hand and she yells. The Wraith's cut is burning and crackling, so we know that it's definitely her. She runs out and locks them in with Wendy. Martin sees that Dean is disoriented and gets up to check on Wendy to try to save her. And he's like, she's still alive. So we then see the Wraith heading down the hall, cradling her hand, and she sees two orderlies, and she says, there's two patients in Wendy's room. They attacked me. So she frames them and then runs away, basically. Dean is now really, like, dizzied and messed up and trying to figure out where he is in the room, honestly. And Martin's like, Dean, can you hear me? And we see this very fragmented vision from Dean's point of view. And Martin says, you've got to get out of here and kill that thing. I'll take care of her. And Dean's like, I can't. And Martin says, you have to. You have no choice, son. But he says it like kindly. So they grab Martin, who fights back to try to buy Dean the ability to escape, which he does. He says, run. And Dean runs out. He starts falling against the walls and things are spinning as he's trying to get away. He pushes off of one wall and basically starts trying to follow this blood trail that he can see, because obviously she's bleeding, so he can follow her to where she is. Then we cut to Sam's room, where he's lying down in a padded room, and the Wraith comes in, and he's shouting, "Hey, let me go," because he's strapped down. And she says, "No, you're far too angry to be out there in the real world." And they look up in the mirror at the same time, which reveals to Sam that she's the bad guy. And he's like, you. And she's like, of course it's me. I gotta say, you hunters don't exactly live up to your rep. I mean, Martin's a wreck. He's harmless. And you and your brother come in here talking tough about killing monsters. Kind of made you easy to spot. Then all it took was a touch. And then we see the flashback of her doing the exam, right? So she holds Sam's arm while checking his blood pressure the first day that they got there. And he's like, oh.
She's like, you two suck.
Yeah.
Also, the Sam being strapped down to the bed reminded me of when the levee breaks, when he's in the panic room.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great observation for sure.
Yeah.
So she says that, quote, crazy brains are delicious, and that they get soaked in dopamine and adrenaline and all sorts of hormones and chemicals that make them delicious. And then she licks her hand. And she says, the crazier they are, the better they taste. And Sam's like, you did this to me. And she says, well, I helped, but that rage, no, that's all you. I don't make crazy. I just crank up what's already there. And he screams. And she says, you build your own hell, but I give you the Legos. And when you're ripe, and then this skewer thing pops out of her arm next to Sam's head. She says, I make all of your problems disappear. And then she turns his head to the side, ready to skewer him. But then Dean finally, gets through, and he's like, you get away from him. And she's like, do you really think this is going to end well for you, kiddo? And he's like, no. And then he pulls the blade out, and he says, but I'm crazy. And he smiles at her. And then he's like, so what the hell? And he goes after her. And the Wraith laughs and raises her hand. Her skewer thing goes back into her arm. Dean swings the blade at her.
Her protrusion, Joy. Her protrusion.
I can't call it that. Well. her bone blade.
That's worse.
It's,
Bone blade.
It sounds cool. It also sounds kind of, yeah, I see what you mean. So she ducks him, throws him into the wall. Dean goes after her again. Then she grabs his arm, throwing him into the wall again. Dean drops the blade. Sam watches helpless because he's still strapped onto the bed. The wraith throws Dean into another wall, pinning him by the throat. Dean grabs her hand as she raises another one. The skewer pops out and she aims it at Dean's forehead. Dean grabs the other arm, trying to hold it away from his head. The skewer comes out a little more, getting her closer to his head. Dean grunts as he tries to push it away. Dean grabs the skewer with his other hand and breaks it off. The wraith screams as she backs into the other wall, holding her skewer hand, which is now spurting blood. Dean holds the skewer for a moment, dropping it in revulsion. He runs over to the blade and grabs it. The wraith turns towards him, yelling in rage. Dean stabs the blade into her heart. The silver burns her as she hits the wall and slides to the floor. Sam and Dean stare at her. Dean's vision loses its fragmented pieces and becomes normal again. Sam's like, "You still crazy?" And he's like, "Not any more than usual." And then he frees Sam. And Dean's like, "We gotta get out of here." And Sam's like, "Yeah." And then the alarm goes off and they're like, "Oh." And they really start making an exit.
Yeah, and apparently they can just run out of this hospital. It's not very secure. They can just leave through a door.
I
and they're outside.
Winchestered their way out. I don't know. But it is very convenient.
Flag. I'm going to call it a flag.
Sure, that's fair.
Also, that when you were describing that fight scene, it sounded so sexual.
It did sound really wrong the way that it's written out. Thanks, Supernatural Wiki.
That at all at the time. It didn't come across that way when you watch it. Just when you listen to it.
When you listen to it, it's like all innuendo.
Spurting protrusions.
Oh my god.
So yeah, then they find baby and Sam has an existential crisis.
Yeah. He says that he's angry at everything, that he can hide it most of the time, but honestly he's mad all the time. Basically, first he was mad at Dad, then Lilith, then Lucifer, and he makes excuses and he blames Ruby and the demon blood, but actually it's just always been inside him. And he says he's mad all the time and I don't know why. And I was like, he's the Hulk.
Yeah.
The secret is I'm angry all the time. Anyway, so Sam looks heart-wrenched and Dean says, "Stop it. So what if you are? What are you going to do? You're going to take a leave of absence? You're going to say yes to Lucifer? What?" And Sam's like, "No, of course not." And Dean's like, "Exactly. And that's exactly what you're going to do. You're going to take all that crap and you're going to bury it. You're going to forget about it because that's how we keep going. That's how we don't end up like Martin. Are you with me?" And I was like, "Oh, Dean, you dumbass." That is the opposite of good advice.
Yeah. Although I did write my notes. I kind of get what Dean is saying because what is he going to do? Like, they're hunters. But burying it sounds like it would actually, like, not be a good thing in the long run.
Exactly. I feel like it's like, first of all, don't slander Martin. Martin's amazing. Secondly, sir, like, bottling everything up to the end of time is how you get super fucked up, not how you win. That's not how you stay in the fight. How you stay in the fight is, you actually address it. Yeah. Like Sam is constantly trying to do by constantly trying to talk to you and you're like shutting him down. I love Dean. I will always be a Dean girl. But in this case, no. Bad Dean.
I'm gonna call myself out here because that's how I have usually handled things in the past, bottling things up. But that's just one of those things that is why I feel like I am actually like Dean.
That's
as much as I don't. It's all the bad things about Dean. And this podcast is teaching me that about myself.
You have Dean's toxic traits. Yeah. So Dean asks him if he's with him, and Sam says, "I'm with you." And Dean says, "Good, let's get the hell out of here." And then they get in the Impala. Sam kind of hesitates for a moment, and then he gets in, and then they drive away into the night. The end.
The end.
The end. Do you want to play games, friend?
Yes. Okay, so villain hot or not?
I wrote not only because she's so fucking scary. Because she's really attractive to me, but I was just like, it gave me the horrors.
I said no because of her gross protrusion. Your scare rating you said was 10 already?
Actually, it turns out I wrote down 100.
Okay, that's fair enough. I wrote 6.5 or 7 maybe, but I didn't have any context for that, so that's all you're getting.
Okay.
I mean, there are scary parts of it, definitely. What were your favourite quotes?
Dean Walt going, well then, quid pro quo, Clarice. And then doing the
I love a Hannibal impression.
But also she gives it back. She's like, okay, Hannibal, I'll go first. Yeah. When do you sleep? And he's like, never. And then when he goes up to Sam and Sam's high as fuck, and he's like, are you okay? And Sam goes, no, I'm not okay. I'm awesome. And Dean's like, they gave you something? And Sam's like, oh yeah, they gave me everything. It's spectacular. And then I also love when Sam's like, me and him and this one angel, and Dr. Fuller's like, oh, you mean like an angel on your shoulder? And Sam's like, no, his name is Castiel. He wears a trench coat.
That was funny.
Yeah. What about you?
I had Ted saying, I agree. You know what else isn't good for group? A monster eating all our faces off.
Amen, Ted.
And then I had Dean saying, what are those, original Gacy's?
That was really funny, actually.
And Wendy saying, I want him now, he's larger.
That was really good. That was a great line.
And then my favourite quote of the whole episode was, boop!
Adorable. Yeah. I didn't have any thirst traps in this episode.
Didn't either. I've just got a question mark.
Respect both of us.
Yeah.
Then most valuable player, I put Martin, duh.
Yeah. I'd put Dean originally, but I agree with you, it's Martin.
Martin wins.
I think I put Dean originally because he was the one that kind of like worked out what was happening. But then Martin did as well. It was both of them.
Yeah. I feel like Martin gave the clues. Dean gets some credit at the end for the fight at the end.
Yeah.
But Martin gets all the other credit, I feel like. Martin wins.
Yeah.
And also he stops Sam from actually murdering that innocent person too.
That's true. Yeah, it is Martin. And then we didn't have a motel.
No motel.
But the hospital gets 0 stars. I wouldn't want to
0 stars. No, do not recommend. Don't want to stay there.
No.
No, thank you. I don't want to stay somewhere with a murderous wraith.
No.
I would go and hang out with Martin though.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's that. That's the episode.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any predictions for the next episode, Laura? Predictions, feelings, thoughts. Well, do you think it's going to be a funny one? Do you think it's going to be scary? Monster of the week?
I think we're just going to still... It's that middle of the season where we've got some maybe Monster of the Week episodes rather than main storyline at the moment, which I'm here for.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't have any predictions. Sorry.
That's okay. You're allowed to not have predictions every single episode. You're entitled. That's about it from us for this episode. If you have any thoughts, drop them in the comments on Spotify or email us in our email. Don't forget about the 100th episode special.
Send us stuff
if you're not already following Navia, everyone is kind of sleeping on her account. It's still quite small. It's still very early, but I would really suggest that you get in now. Go and give her a follow. I'm sure we're going to do more collaborations with her in the future because she's brilliant and amazing. So for sure, go check out Navia. That is, again, on Instagram at anywhere but here fangirl, and I believe she has the same handle on YouTube too. And thank you so much to everybody who's been writing in and adding to the mailbag. We love those. Can't wait to do like more in the 100th episode.
We're having more people actually emailing us now as well, which is always fun.
It is like, super fun.
Instagram.
Yeah, we've got people telling us about how they're binging the podcast and they've somehow caught up to where we are now, which is like life-changing. Like that made my whole life feel complete, honestly. Like that made every headache that I battled through, every migraine, every kind of like day when I felt my body was falling to pieces and I didn't want to turn up to record. It makes it all really worth it. That is awesome. Thank you so much. And we've had a couple of people say that, and it's just so nice. And I feel like there's more and more of you guys, and you don't even know what that means to us. So thank you again so much. Any thoughts that you have for the episode, drop in the comments on Spotify as well. Don't forget that that's there. You can comment on any platform. That's very kind of you. It's just that Laura doesn't remember that they exist. So you'll get a reply on Spotify or in email.
What is Threads?
There's also Threads, but she doesn't remember Threads. So probably you can write, but you may get an answer next year.
One day I'll remember and I'll go on there all the time.
Yeah. If you want a fast answer, you can contact us on Instagram or on
email.
Spotify. Yeah, or email. Those are really the ways. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you especially to my anonymous friend who is amazing. I appreciate you so much. And yeah, that's it for this episode. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in. If you like this episode, please rate, review, and subscribe. We would be very grateful. And if you know someone who would enjoy it, please share.
You can find us on Instagram at the Witches of Letters podcast, or you can email us at thewitchesofletters@gmail.com.
Until next time, stay safe out there, have each other's backs, and always keep fighting.